Have you ever wondered what Minecraft would look like if you had to progress through different dimensions? I mean, we already have the Nether and the End, but what if we had more? What if we had a desert dimension, a cold dimension, a jungle dimension, an entire ocean dimension, a wasteland dimension, a pillager dimension, a cave dimension? Well, I made a mod pack with all of those ideas, and the goal is to unlock all of them by doing certain tasks, like killing bosses, solving puzzles, raiding structures, and a lot more. And after all that, you'll be able to obtain the strongest item. This is Through the Spheres. I started off by creating a new universe. Yep, I decided to call them universes since each world is in one save file. And I decided to call it New Universe because, I don't know, I liked it. And after loading up the file, I spawned in a dimension where there's just nothing but bedrock and darkness. Well, except for the sun above. But I did have a quest book, and once I opened it, I was immediately greeted with this. Choose a starting sphere or be stuck here for all eternity. The options in question were the hot sphere and the cold sphere. I've had better days in cold temperatures, so I decided to choose the cold sphere. When I first spawned in the cold sphere, it looked like just to be a large frozen ocean, but I managed to find a large tower and some land. I would go to the land first just to chop down a tree, but I would only collect 3 logs because it's just enough for a pickaxe and an axe. And if you look on the bottom left, you'll notice that there is a vein ability. Depending on what the number is, you'll be able to mine the same amount of blocks in one chop. And this thing can be a lifesaver, well, sometimes. And after gathering a bunch of wood, I would go up and explore this tall tower. And after making it to the top, I managed to find a waystone, to which if I had 2 activated, I would be able to teleport between them. I would also find a chest, which contained some items as well as an umbrella, which will slow your fall when held, and won't deal any fall damage. After that, I would dig into a jagged mountain, and the vein miner dug all the way to the other side, which wasn't really that far to be honest. But it looked pretty cool, so I decided to make the middle my home. And after establishing my home, I would go out and take a look at the quests. And most of the quests were actually hidden because I had to complete them first. And I would have to read the descriptions of the quests that I already completed. Anyways, this one says, now that you've entered your fate, find the locals. Which means I'll probably have to look for a village. I couldn't really find a village for a while, but I did find this ice well, which had some lapis and suspicious gravel. Eventually, I did manage to find a village by climbing another tower. And what do you know? I managed to complete the next quest. And when I was trying to look at the villager's trade, it said you are not skilled enough to interact with this specific villager. I would look at my quest again, and it said this. Seems like they don't trust you. Try defeating their enemy and showing their relic. Which means I'll probably have to explore even more of the world and find some sort of illager. In the meantime, I took the villager's stuff. But before I wanted to do that, I wanted to get a full set of iron armor. This is because there's no telling how strong the enemy really is. If I wanted to mine iron, I would have to look around the mountains. This is because there are no caves in the cold sphere or hot sphere. This would make iron harder to find, but not impossible. But anyways, I managed to get enough for a full set of armor with some extra tools. And after that, I went out to explore once again. And I managed to find this single shack on the side of a river. And it turned out, it was the enemy I was looking for. And it was none other than the ice oliger. All I really had to do was run around just so I don't get hit by the ice clouds. And it was overall a pretty easy fight. I would also get the Totem of Freezing, to which if I were to die, it would freeze every enemy around me and would give me speed. I would also complete a quest for getting it, and the description says, now that you've shown the relic, use it to ask for directions, which means I'll probably have to trade with a cartographer to get a map. And while I was looking for a cartographer, I killed another isologer, and even found an igloo. And in the igloo chest was a whoopee cushion, and the ability should explain for itself. And after exploring around, I managed to find a village with a cartographer, and I was able to trade with him. However, sugarcane almost never naturally spawns in the cold sphere, but farmers do happen to sell sugarcane for just 1 emerald. So for the next while, I would be digging up clay just to trade with a mason, and then use the emeralds to buy paper, to get the cartographer to level 2, just so I could get the map. Oh, and I would also chop down pumpkins if the mason's trades were maxed out, and it turned out to be a better strategy. Eventually, I would sell enough paper to the cartographer that he would give me his map trade, which is actually pretty good because it doesn't always show up when you level him up. And after one more grinding session, I would buy redstone from the cleric to make a compass, and then finally buy the map to my destination. And you know I had to craft a boat if we were going over ice rivers. And after traveling almost 2,000 blocks, I have finally made it. And as soon as I got up there, I was immediately greeted with mining fatigue and a bunch of strays. Luckily, I had a waystone placed down so I didn't die. And when I got inside, there were 3 different puzzles. The first one, I did not know what to do at all. I was just randomly placing banners down until at least something happened. And after staying there for like 10 minutes, I turned around and noticed the campfire was already lit up. If anyone knows how to actually solve this puzzle, could you please let me know in the comments below? I really want to know for next time. Anyways, the next puzzle was follow the tiles on screen and step on the right pressure plates, and, you know, that was easy. And finally, the last one was shoot the target, which is probably the easiest out of them. I even got a little jingle playing. And after doing all 3 puzzles, I could finally explore the basement. And when I got to the basement, there were a lot of rooms full of loot, and my inventory filled up pretty quickly. And there were some annoying rooms as well, like this swimming maze. Eventually, I managed to reach the throne room where the mummy resided, and there were a lot of skeletons after me. And when I tried to loot every single chest, I died. But I managed to get my stuff back easily, and I managed to slay the mummy and disable the mining fatigue. And since the throne room just had too many skeletons, I decided to mine around the room and collect the eye under the throne that way. And just like that, I've unlocked the hot sphere. But before I go to the hot sphere, I would make myself a backpack, which would really come in handy. And I would also unlock the sphere index in my quest book, which not only shows lore, but gives you the ability to teleport to them. So I teleported to the hot sphere. And when I first spawned in the hot sphere, it looked like to just be a massive, non-frozen ocean, but I managed to find some land. And just like the cold sphere, the quests are the exact same. But it was easier since I had stuff. Like, it only took me 10 minutes to get the map compared to almost 2 hours. Anyways, while I was following the map to the desert temple, I managed to come across the enemy of the hot sphere, being the illusioner. And I gotta say, this was a little bit harder than the oliger. You had multiple clones shooting at you. If you attack the wrong one, it'll disappear. And yeah, it's just quite the difficulty spike. I was lucky enough to find the right clone, and I killed him pretty quick. He also dropped the Totem of Illusion, which when activated will summon a lot of clones of yourself and will blind enemies. The shack also had some pretty good loot as well, such as potions and a power 2 bow. And after traveling the same amount of blocks to get to the Ice Temple, I arrived at the Desert Temple, and I was immediately greeted with mining fatigue and husks, which were better than strays. But I gotta say, they are way more annoying because there's a very small chance that they will spawn bot flies, which do armor-piercing damage, and those are a show to deal with itself. But anyways, after blocking every path they can enter, I managed to do all 3 of the puzzles to unlock the basement, and it's the exact same thing as the other sphere. I defeated the mummy, mined around the room, and collected the eye for the cold sphere. Now I know I've already technically unlocked the cold sphere by starting with it, but it is the cold eye that's going to be important. This is because with both eyes, you will be able to summon the boss to unlock the next sphere. So I gathered the materials I needed, and I was ready to fight. This is the Lord of Temperature, the power of both spheres into one entity. This boss may run away most of the time, but his spells are strong. With hordes of Vexes attacking you, and Evoker Fangs homing at you, it's best to just run along with him. And while I'm running around, I should probably tell you to subscribe. Yes, I don't usually ask people to subscribe, but I've been stuck at 400 subs for 3 years, so I would really appreciate if we could get to 500 subs, because I just want to show that I never give up on YouTube, and I want to keep going. But only subscribe if you enjoy my videos. Anyways, I did take a couple hits, but the fight was overall pretty easy, and I had officially unlocked the Jungle Sphere. Its description says, "Through this overgrown land, there are many wild mobs such as wasps, spiders, and skeletons. There are also temples and keys to where they may have once resided." And when I first spawned in the Jungle Sphere, it looked like to just be another middle of the ocean. But there was a small island. And I used that island to collect wood, and I used that wood to make a boat. And I used that boat to get to the big landmass. And when I got to that landmass, I found an interesting looking jungle temple. And when I got to the basement, I had to go through some obstacles, like this maze where you have to look carefully at the block that's under the pressure plate, or you'll get shot by arrows. As well as this hallway where you had to run as fast as possible, and this really annoying vine parkour, which I eventually just ended up cheesing. Last but not least, there was the final room where I had to jump over small pillars to unlock the treasure. And when I finally got to the treasure room, I got some pretty cool stuff like this pocket piston and the light temple map. When you wear the pocket piston, it can give you 1 extra level of knockback. And that's only one of the 3 artifacts you can find throughout the jungle temples. And the best part is, each jungle temple is unique. Like this one that has water leaf parkour, match the item, avoid the pistons, swim for the emeralds, and more that can't all be shown. However, my luck would not be in favor, since I would get the same things twice. However, I would make my way to the Light Temple. Even though it looked like a small structure, there were a lot of unique rooms to explore. Like this treasure room with a new artifact, a pillager room which the Allays gave me a map to a camp, a room with Evoker Fangs, and a room with a totem that will lead to the next quest. And this quest says, you didn't find the large structure, but something familiar may like this. Meaning I'll probably have to follow the camp map. And while I was following it, I managed to come across a few more jungle temples. And with one of them, even though I didn't get the same map, I got a new artifact, being the Superstitious Hat, which increases looting levels by 1. And when I was really close to the camp, there was another jungle temple. But this time, it had a new map and the final artifact I needed. That being the Feral Claws, which increases your attack speed by 0.4. And it's the most useful one out of the 3 in my opinion. And when I finally reached the camp, I traded my Totem of Growth for the Ancient Eye, which will give me access to the Ancient Sphere. But before I want to go to the Ancient Sphere, I also want to visit the Jungle Fortress. And with that, I upgraded to a Diamond Axe with Sharpness 3, and a bow with Power 4 and Infinity. And without any stops, I sailed all the way to the destination. And this thing was huge. And this was also a part of a quest, saying that I found the large structure, but the next step is underwater, meaning that there is a basement below that I'll have to explore. But for now, I wanted to explore the whole bridge first. But combined with the rain and darkness, there were a lot of mobs. There were even some points that I had to jump off the bridge because I was getting so low on health, but I managed to barely escape. However, I wouldn't say the same for this one. Yeah, you can imagine how painful it was to get back. Eventually, it stopped raining and I went into the main lobby, and when I dove into the well, I found 5 diamonds that I mined with 1 hit thanks to the vein miner. Eventually, I did enter the basement, which did happen to be completely underwater, so I would have to dig air pockets every few seconds. And like I said, the basement is huge and has many different rooms. It's just I would need a source of air. I literally had to make a new pickaxe just because of how many air pockets I was digging. Eventually, I managed to get into the magma block meta, and I killed a drown for the ocean eye. Now I had unlocked 2 spheres in the jungle sphere, and by the time I got the eye, I was just done with the structure. There wasn't really any interesting loot. I don't think there was, because it was just me digging air pockets. And by the time I got home, I decided to call it a day. We had already unlocked 5 different spheres and 11 different artifacts. And now it is up to you, the viewer, to decide which sphere I'll be starting in next. The ocean sphere or the ancient sphere? Vote on the poll in the pinned comment and choose where we'll start in the next part.